The Brian Flores lawsuit has new members. Remember, it was a class action lawsuit that had virtually no other members of the class. Steve Wilks, who was fired after 1 year as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, is arguing that he was fired because he was black. Ray Horton is also saying the same thing. Now, what is interesting to me about these cases is Steve Wilks went 3-13 and everything fell apart and he was fired. Listen to Steve Wilks' resume when he was hired, all right? I want to just share this with you as he has filed a new lawsuit arguing that he was unfairly treated. Okay, Steve Wilks, in the years before he was hired as a head coach, was a defensive back coach with the Carolina Panthers, defensive back coach, although they gave him the assistant head coach title, and he was the defensive coordinator for a year with the Carolina Panthers. He then got the head coaching job. He's had a couple of different head coaching jobs before. He was the head coach for 11 games at Savannah State, went 5-16. He came in last place with the Arizona Cardinals, went 3-13. They then fired him after a year. They also kicked Josh Rosen, their first-round draft pick, to the curb. Steve Wilks was, in a positive sense, had become the overall number one draft pick the Arizona Cardinals had. They then went and drafted Kyler Murray. They hired Cliff Kingsbury, and they wanted to pair him with Kyler Murray. He says that was racist and he was unfairly treated based on the fact that he was black. Interesting argument. Doesn't seem to have, to me, a lot of legitimacy behind it. By the way, he has since been the defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns and also the defensive coordinator at Missouri. I believe he was fired as the defensive coordinator at Missouri because his defense was not very good. He is now a defensive coach with the Carolina Panthers. All right. So that is Steve Wilks' background. The other guy that is suing is Ray Horton. Ray Horton says that he has been discriminated against because he is black. And Ray Horton's resume is somewhat interesting as well. He's been a defensive coordinator with the Cleveland Browns, the Arizona Cardinals, the Cleveland Browns again, and right now he's the Washington Redskins defensive coordinator. At least he has been. He was the Redskins defensive backs coach in 2019. He is arguing that he has been unfairly treated as well. And he was fired, by the way, by the Cleveland Browns. He was Hugh Jackson's defensive coordinator. Obviously, things did not go very well with Hugh Jackson in Cleveland, so that resume was not very impressive. But what is going to be intriguing about these cases is how do you prove when you don't have a very good record as a coach that you have been discriminated against, right? Brian Flores, to me, blew it. He would have gotten the Houston Texans job if he hadn't filed this lawsuit. Instead, he's an assistant coach right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Brian Flores blew it because he then said Lovie Smith is an inferior coach to me, and the only reason he got the job is because I sued the league. Well, one, that's an insult to Lovie Smith. Two, when you look at Steve Wilks and Ray Horton, do either of these guys have the successful resumes that would suggest they have been treated unfairly? Steve Wilks got the head coaching job for a year with the Arizona Cardinals and was the worst coach in the league in terms of record because the Cardinals rose up to get the number one overall pick, and much of the roster appears to have turned against him. Are you really arguing that the Arizona Cardinals didn't have justification to fire a coach after he posted the worst record in the league? And then for Ray Horton, his defenses at Cleveland did not do very well, and he was fired by Hugh Jackson, who certainly did not do very well either. In other words, it's hard to argue in a league as competitive as the NFL that the reason you were fired is because you were black when your performance was not good, right? Brian Flores has a better argument because his performance was not awful and because he didn't get a job. The problem is he filed his lawsuit halfway through his interview process, right? And so as a result, I don't think these guys strengthen his claim very much at all because they aren't that successful as head coaches. That is Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton.